So obviously, I've been around black women my whole life, and it's only recently how much I've been learning that when men in general talk about respecting women, there's always terms and conditions. So I respect women if they respect themselves. I respect women if they look after their family or friends. I respect women if they got their head screwed on and they're not in the club every day. I respect or the familiarity rule, which is, of course, I respect women. I've got a mum and a sister who are that close to you that's not necessarily you respecting women. That's you respecting people that are taking care of you and that you have an obligation to take care of, and your lady friends also. So a lot of times I think as men we don't understand that we don't actually respect women. We respect individual women. We respect people that fall in line with our ideology of how a woman should behave or how a woman should act. I was saying in another video that from a young age, I was always called a young king. In fact, I was called a young king more when I was involved in negative actions, because as a man, I have a privilege that means people judge me based on my potential rather than what I've experienced or what I've done. So it'll always be, you're still a young king, you're still a young king. Whereas the culture with women is to judge them based on what they've done.
They get soiled, isn't it, in a way?
100%. So women, to be called a queen, there's terms and conditions. She's a young queen because she works hard. She's a young queen because she's a mother. She's a young queen because she knows where she wants to be. She's a young queen because she can cook well, or she's got this graft or whatever. There's no terms and conditions for being a king. There's none. You're a young king because you're a man. Simple as. Well, you had a story of you were on crack. You're still a young king, and you can be whatever you want to be. You sold drugs. You're still a young king, and you can aspire to be whatever you want to be. The idea that women genuinely have to experience so many underlining sexist values from men on a day-to-day basis. And these are the things I address in the poem. To me, it's crazy when you start realizing, and when I started realizing the things that I contributed without even knowing, the things that you watch happen on a day-to-day basis and not realize that was sexist. And when you start learning these things, you borderline want to apologize. But at the same time, there's something more important. You need to take responsibility, because a lot of times when things are happening, what's that waste man's name? Harvey Weinstein or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like when that happened, a lot of the talk media-wise was they'd be interviewing women that aren't even in the film industry, and the first question would be, "Oh, what's your thoughts on Harvey Weinstein?" Whereas the same news outlets and media outlets would get men that are in the film industry and not ask them a single question about him, because there's always been this responsibility on women to fix men rather than for men to address men. Because what you notice is the people that don't consciously or don't sexually harass women, or don't, I say consciously because I do believe there's a lot of men out there doing it that aren't, as crazy it sounds, aren't even aware. That, like, if you ask them, they say they wouldn't. But if you actually told them the behavioural patterns of someone that sexually assaults women, they'd understand that they actually do. The ones that don't do it consciously feel as if they do not need to get involved in the conversation because it's something neither they or their friends would do. Which leaves it to either the men that do it or the women. Now, the problem is when you unlearn behavioural patterns, the worst thing you can do is not educate the people who haven't unlearned. So when I was sitting down with my ex, my brethren and whatever, and they're telling me all these things, I'm looking at it like, I've learned all this stuff, but how do I stop other guys? And one thing that hit me was Conan, from Krypton Conan. I remember when he made he made robbing phones not cool. Like he in Don't Waste My Time, he was like, can I swear?
Yeah.
He was like, oh fuck, but it's probably still jacking phones. And like, I genuinely believe every single roadman that was robbing phones at the time was listening to that and went,
Yeah, that's nice.
oh shoot. And he doesn't realise that probably in that moment,
Yeah, cool.
he doesn't realise that probably in that moment, he discouraged a lot of men from robbing other men. Because you make something not cool anymore, you change the perception of it. So a lot of things that I want to address for the power for like our black women specifically is is not just defending them, but like fighting for them against other men, and there's an appreciation poem for them as well. So yeah, they got two.